Hey guys, welcome. Today I want to show you how I paint mushrooms. And this will be a series where I show you how to paint nature stuff, so stick around if you're interested. First I start by searching for some inspiration, and then I lay out all the stuff that I need. Of course, my cup of tea, very important. We'll be needing watercolor paper. I like to use cold pressed paper. Then you will also be needing a little piece of paper where you can swatch your colors, your watercolors of course, then a sketchbook to do some first sketches, some brushes, a pencil, a rubber and a sharpener, and then we can start. The first mushroom that I chose to paint was this little yellow one. I really like the yellow ones because they add a nice little splash of colors to your paintings. And then I also wanted to draw something interesting, so I picked out this frilly one. And so I can show you how I do a little bit of texture. I chose this one with little brown spots on it because it was really cute. Now we can start transferring our sketches on our watercolor paper. I like to use a watercolor pencil because it just disappears when I go over the sketch with my watercolor, which is very useful. I always keep my sketchbook in front of me so I can see my first sketch, and I also have my inspiration picture on my monitor in front of me, so that allows me to do very freehand sketch on my watercolor paper. After I finish transferring my sketch on my watercolor paper, I start by outlining all of it with a sepia colored fine liner. I prefer brown fine liners over black ones because I don't like the high contrast between the watercolor and my outline. My fine liner is also waterproof, which allows me to go over it with watercolor and it won't smudge or disappear. Now we can start the best part, the coloring. Very nice, and of course we need water to activate our watercolors. The first thing that we will do is paint our tiny yellow mushrooms, and I just mix a yellow color for the first layer and then I just start to paint them. For the second and third mushroom we will be needing a very light beige base. You can achieve that color by mixing brown and then putting a lot of water into it, and I would recommend swatching the color on your little piece of paper so you can see if it's too light or if it's too dark. Then you can just add more color or more water. The next part will be adding a second layer on our yellow mushrooms. I just mix a little bit of red in our yellow, so I got this bright orange color, and I paint the top of our mushrooms to create a little bit of depth. You have to keep in mind that before you add the second layer, Your first layer has to dry a bit, at least 70%, otherwise your color will wear off when you add the second layer. Now we can start adding shadows to our little mushrooms under the caps or where they overlap or on the stump. Just some tiny shadows. I mix a little brown in our yellow orange color. And now we add tiny details. That's the last step and it's my personal favorite. Now we can continue with our second mushroom. I use a brown color for the shadows, and where the stem begins I will smudge the shadow a bit so it's not so rough. And I do that by using a second brush, which is a little damp. You have to be careful that it's not too wet, otherwise it will mess with your watercolor. If you want, you can add a little dirt for texture at the ending of the mushrooms to make them look more interesting and give them a little bit more depth. And the last step for those mushrooms is adding the details. Now that we finished our second mushrooms, we can start with our third. I just start by adding shadows. And now I add the little pointy details at the top of the mushroom. I just use a darker brown. And the very last thing I do is add dark texture at the stem of this mushroom. I hope you enjoyed my little tutorial, and I hope I will see you the next time when I paint stuff from nature. Bye!